Before he could even open his book, though, his large ears pricked up. He had become familiar with the low humming of one particular red fox, who'd only been coming to the bookstore for a couple weeks, and who intrigued Amir more than any of the other patrons. For one thing, this fox wore tight jeans and an open vest. He must leave his overcoat at the counter. Unlike most of the patrons of the bookstore, he was tightly muscled and almost hyperactive, bouncing on his feet even when standing still. His tail twitched when it wasn't swishing, and his ears flicked constantly around, as though he were paranoid someone was sneaking up on him. But the few times Amir had seen his expression, he'd never looked scared or worried. He always wore a faint smile, as if he'd just come from, or were just going to see, a lover and was cherishing the memory or the anticipation. And, most intriguing of all, his taste in books seemed to vary wildly from one day to the next. Juvenile fantasy gave way to social psychology, which was replaced by a hard-boiled crime thriller. Amir was an avid reader, but even he hadn't bounced between so many genres so quickly. Well, to be honest, the most intriguing features of the fox were the tight, rounded curves under his tail, and the flowing way that tail arched and swung behind him. Just from looking at it, Amir had no doubt that that tail had been lifted many times, and the more he thought about it, especially today, the more glad he was that he had a book concealing his lap. This time, a book of Sudoku puzzles dangled loosely beside that sweetly rounded rear. Amir let his gaze linger. Definitely was going to need at least a paw tonight. Might be better than a bar, actually. If he tried to pick up someone, as frustrated as he felt now, it'd not be very good. If only he could just walk up to this fox and say, "Hey, can I get you a coffee?" "Don't kid yourself," he told himself glumly. The fox would look him over and say, "Thanks, but I'm set." He'd leave, and Amir wouldn't even have the daydreams about him anymore. They were such nice daydreams, too. He didn't want to give them up. He watched the fox's rear swing from side to side, the long red tail flowing behind it, almost mesmerizing. And then the fox turned his head and looked right back at him. Amir felt his large ears flush. He folded them down and buried his nose in the thriller, trying to pick up the flow of the text again. But as the police lieutenant in his text talked about the grisly crime scene, all Amir saw was the red fox's clear golden eyes, the little fang at the edge of his muzzle, the slight curve of his smile. God, staring in a public bookstore like a horny little fag who hadn't even had an ear nibble in months. What was wrong with him? Maybe, he thought, what was wrong with him was that he was a horny little fag who hadn't even had an ear nibble in months. That thought was swiftly followed by another brief daydream about the red fox's slender muzzle in his large ear, tongue licking up the edge, sharp teeth nibbling at the skin. He could almost feel the warm breath ruffling the short fur, his whole body tingling as it did. He knew fairly well what the red would smell like. He imagined that musk thicker in his nostrils, the nose pushing gently deeper against his inner ear. Any hope he had of getting further in his book was gone. Time to go home, or at least down to the coffee shop. His chai had run out half an hour ago anyway. "That's a pretty good book," someone said softly right next to him, right into the soft fur of his left ear. He almost jumped out of the couch.